Hello, my name is Chloe, welcome to my channel. Today I'm bringing to you the latest installment in books I've unhauled lately. If you are new to these videos on my channel, rather than do massive big unhauls with you where I keep all the books and wait to show you them, I decided to bring you a little wrap up of all the books I've unhauled lately, depending on where they are in existence. I've been really good at unhauling lately. This list goes back just to March of this year. When I'm filming, we're just in the final days of June, so about 3 months worth of unhauling, and it's pretty impressive. I will say from the start, if I hold a book up physically, that means I currently own it and am looking for somebody to take it off my hands. There are some books here where I'd like to actually sell them, and there are other books where just paying postage is completely fine. So if you see a book that you are interested in, then please do let me know and I'm sure we can arrange something. There are lots of books on this list, so I'm not gonna dally around, we're just gonna get straight into it. With the first one being The Shelf by Helly Acton. This unhaul list starts from when I was in the States in March and took some books over, knowing full well that when I read them, I was gonna leave them there. So The Shelf is a book I read in March. I rated it 2.5 stars and said it was the literal definition of an okay book. It wasn't good, I didn't like it, I didn't hate it, 2.5 stars. There is no need for me to have it in my life. Next up, we have The Ex-Hex by Erin Sterling, which I believe I gave 3 stars. Same situation. This was an adult witchy romance. I liked it, I didn't love it. I took it to the States to leave it there, so that one's gone. And finally, on that vein, we have The Love Square by Laura Jane Williams. I believe I gave this one 3 stars as well, maybe 3.5. And it was another adult romance. I took it over to the States, didn't need to keep it. Next up, one that sounds controversial is The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. I unhauled this one because I had a paperback copy that I received from the publisher when the paperback came out, I believe. But then I was kindly gifted a hardback copy from the lovely Victoria at What Victoria Read. I love this book, but not enough that I need 2 copies. So I kept my lovely hardback from Victoria and the paperback left my collection. Next up, The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones. This was the Chloe's Crime Scene Corner read for March, I believe, and I genuinely disliked it. I think I gave it 2 stars, if that. Got rid of it on Vinted instantly. This actually is a good point to say, if you do not follow me on Vinted, if you're in the UK, please do, I'll link it down below. All of my unhaul books go immediately onto Vinted, so if you would like the first opportunity to grab books that I'm unhauling, that is where you'll find them. Next up, we have Haven't They Grown by Sophie Hannah. This was one I read in Turkey with Emily. I was just wondering why I got rid of it, because I did enjoy it, but what actually happened is I took it to the US to give to the mother-in-law. I thought she'd really enjoy it, turns out she loves the sound of it, so that one is gone. And next up, The Five by Hallie Rubenhold. This was the book about the women killed by Jack the Ripper, and we read it again for Chloe's Crime Scene Corner. I did like it in a sense that I liked learning this information, but I didn't think it was one I was going to read again, so I did get rid of that one. The first one I can hold up is The Boy Most Likely To by Huntley Fitzpatrick. This was a charity shop bargain way back when, and I read it in March. I took this one to Turkey and I brought it back with me because I was reading on the plane. That's what I was doing. So I read this one in March and didn't love it, didn't hate it, but just not one I need in my forever collection. I believe I've read all of Huntley Fitzpatrick's books now and have always rated them between 3 and 4 stars and then not held on to them. So maybe it's time for me to give up, but I did like this. I didn't dislike it. Next up, we have The Woman in Black by Susan Hill, and this is because this is a bit of a beat up copy. When me and Emily went to 66 Books, I bought myself a brand new copy and then I transferred my annotations, which are just a couple of highlights here and there. I can't even find an example. There we go, it's just a couple of highlighted pages. I did not need 2 copies. This one I only got because I wanted to own a copy. I reread it from here twice, I believe, and I just want a fresh one. So I bought a fresh one, getting rid of this one. Next up, we have What the World Doesn't See by Mal Darbin, and I read this one. It was sent to me by the author and I genuinely really did like it. This was a YA contemporary about grief and also teenagers with learning difficulties. I did like it and I thought the author's note was literally just going to break my heart. But I also then decided that this would go very well to some of the people I knew I thought would really benefit from this story. So this was actually unhauled directly to a chosen person who I thought would like it. Really hope they did. I don't know if they've read it yet. Next up, we have Words on Bathroom Walls by Julia Walton, and this is one I put off for the longest time, and I'm now really sad I did because I didn't like it that much. This is a YA contemporary about mental illness, and I believe there's actually a movie now. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it. Next up, the one I'm going to get screamed at for is Her Majesty's Royal Coven by Juno Dawson. I tried to read this 3 times, once physically, once with the audio, once combined, and sadly it just wasn't for me. I had a gorgeous special edition that was signed from the lovely Claire. I did speak to her about this, but I sent it to Victoria because she loved this book and I thought she would really like having this in her collection, which she is now getting the second book to match. So I feel like I did a good deed here, even though I did unhaul a gift, but I tried my hardest to read it. Next up, we have Solitaire by Alice Oseman. This is one I had for quite a while, and then I decided to listen to the audiobook when I drove on my visit to see Chelsea. I had a solid 7-hour round trip, so smashed out the audiobook on the way there. I'm gonna say it, this one was fine. I didn't really have strong feelings about the characters, the decisions they made, the way the story went. Nothing really stuck with me, and I know this book is really impactful for a lot of people, so I just decided it was me not vibing with the book, and I actually sold that one at the car boot like a couple days ago. Next up, we have Unpregnant by Jenny Hendricks and Ted Kaplan. I won't talk about this one too much because I really didn't vibe with it. I ended up giving this no rating because I feel like it's quite a hard topic to discuss. This is about abortion in the US. It just didn't really, I didn't vibe with it, and I assume that other people will, but for me it just was not where I wanted to go, and sadly I had this one for a while. I think it would have been more impactful if I read it back when I got it, back in say 2020, but now with this world, I don't know how I feel about this. Sorry if I've moved slightly or the lighting's changed. My phone was going crazy over on the other side of the room. The next book I have to talk about is Roses of May by Dot Hutchison. This is the second book in the Butterfly Garden series, and it was the only other one I owned. I have now decided for my own mental happiness that the Butterfly Garden is a standalone, which I've kept, and I don't need to think about that book anymore. Next one I did enjoy, I just can't see myself reading again, is Looking Glass Sound by Catriona Ward. I thought I was being clever by calling her Katrina because I worked with someone with this spelling called Katrina. Turns out it's a choice and they can say Catriona, so there we are. This is a very weirdly told horror, and parts of it I thought were amazing. Parts of it I was very confused, but overall I don't have a pull to read this again, so I'm just gonna unhaul it. There's no point keeping it if I'm not going to read it again, is there? Next up, we have the book that I read on my way back from Chelsea's, and that is Eliza and Her Monsters by Francesca Zappia. This I did listen to on audio on my drive, and I did decide that I was going to reread it physically so that I could see the pictures. But then I had a flick through the pictures and I wasn't that wowed. So I've decided that my positive experience with this book is not tied directly to the physical copy, and I can listen to the audio again if I so wish. So this one is sadly going. I don't need a book on my shelves that I've already read and I don't know if I'm going to want to read again. So I can secure this another way if I wish. It's really hurting me to put this down, but like I don't need to keep it. I would like it to go to a good home though. Next up, we have Love and Gelato by Jenna Evans Welch, which is a book I read in May, I think. I didn't dislike it. I didn't love it. Guess what? It was fine. Sold it on Depop. It's a YA contemporary about living in Italy and dealing with grief. And then another one, I said Depop, I meant Vinted. Another one that went on Vinted was Priest by Sierra Simone. This was an adult smutty romance about a priest who gives in to temptation with a woman called Poppy Danforth, and I thought it was pretty bad, so I got rid of it. Next up, we're on to the books that I left in the States in my May trip, the first one being The Lovely Bones by Alice Sebold. I hated this book with a passion, definitely going to be on my most hated books of the year. It was unhauled, let's not even talk about it. Then I have the light novels for Sword Art Online, volumes 1, 2 and 3. Number 1 I had read before, 2 and 3 I hadn't, but basically I didn't want them on my shelf anymore, but I didn't know if I'd ever want to read them, so I left them on Cole's bookshelf so that he can have them and I can read them when I'm there. So I'm counting it as an unhaul. And then finally from that trip is The Twilight Wife by AJ Banner. This is a thriller I read while I was over there. It's also the one that's featured in my Come Read With Me if you haven't checked that out yet and need some reading company. So I read this one out in the garden, in the States, in the sunshine, and I did like it, but the story was very similar to me to a movie I'd already seen, so I didn't exactly love it. I did think the mother-in-law would like it, so I left it for her. Next up, we have Black Dawn by Rachel Kane. Bit weird, you think? This is book 12 in the Morganville Vampire series, but my lovely friend Chelsea, who's already been mentioned clearly, got me a signed copy of this as one of my 3,000 subscriber gifts, so I don't need to keep the one that's not signed. Easy enough. And then next up I have Extasia by Claire Legrand, which is a book I spent far too much money on at Yelk last summer, and then it turns out I don't want to read this. I tried many times, audio and physically, couldn't get into it, which is a shame, but it's gotta go. Next up we have The Devouring Grey by Kristen Lynn Herman. This was one I started in the States and brought back with me, and it's a pretty standard YA fantasy set in a town with witches. I didn't hate it, but I did hate that it was written like a TV episode and that we have to read book 2 to get an answer. So that is the sole reason why I'm unhauling it. I don't want to read it again. I did take it to the States knowing that I could just throw it away because unfortunately it is quite water damaged, like the pages are a bit crinkled and it's not in the best overall condition, but it was good for just like a quick easy read. Next up we have The Murder of Graham Catton by Katie Lowe, which I did really enjoy, but I have actually sent to Victoria. She is always a sweetheart to me, and when she showed interest in this book I wasn't sure whether I was going to reread it or not, so I just decided do a good deed, send it to your good friend. So Victoria has this book. Next up, 2 books that are related that I sold on Depop are Girls with Razor Hearts and Girls with Rebel Souls. These are books 2 and 3 of the Girls with Sharp Sticks series, which I read as part of the Dystopian Readathon. Girls with Sharp Sticks will forever be one of my favourite books, but book 2 and book 3 I genuinely wanted to rip up, burn, drop in a puddle, did not want to look at them anymore, so sold them instantly on Vinted. I really hated those books. Next up, Little Darlings by Jacqueline Wilson, which is, I was gonna say fine. This is a middle grade contemporary kind of story with 2 girls, Destiny and Sunset, who may be half siblings because they might share a dad, Danny Kilman, retired rock star. I did like this one. The ending really sucked for me, but I liked it most of the way through. Never gonna read this again though. Next up we have 4 by Veronica Roth, which is a collection of short stories from the Divergent series. I love the Divergent series so much. I listened to the audiobook of this while we did the Dystopian Readathon, and sadly it just didn't do anything extra for me. I enjoyed it at the time, but I don't feel like there's a need to keep this book in my forever collection, which is what I always say. These are the anniversary editions, so I thought they were going to look so nice together forever, but I just don't need this book. It didn't add anything. It kind of felt like a money grab, I won't lie. I am going to butcher this one, but I'm going to give it my best go. The next one is Clara and the Sun by Kazuo Ishiguro. We're going with it. Another one I read for the Dystopian Readathon. I gave this 3 stars. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. It was fine. Not going to read it again. Next up, an arc I was sent a little while ago and I finally got round to it is The Last One to Fall by Gabriella Lepore. This is from the author of This Is Why We Lie, which is another arc that I read way back when. So this is a YA mystery thriller about a teenager who is pushed out of a window of like an abandoned factory, and which of the friends is guilty of his murder. So I did like this one, but it didn't knock my socks off, so I'm not going to keep this arc. But if you do want this book and you have arcs to trade, or any way we can sort of trade for it, because obviously I can't sell an arc, then do let me know. We then have Clown in a Cornfield by Adam Caesar. This one sold the day that I put it on Vinted, so I'm gonna say that people were quite excited to see it on there. But this one is a YA horror about a murderous clown, and I wanted to love it, but sadly it didn't tick all my boxes and it didn't really scare me. So 3 stars, maybe 3.5, and it's gone. Last 2 now, we have Someone Is Watching You by Tess James Mackey. This is a YA horror about a girl who gets lost in an abandoned prison and there may or may not be a ghost. I liked the premise, but I didn't love this book too much and I won't be rereading it, so that one is going. And finally, at the time of filming this, I only read this one a couple of days ago, but we have Conviction by Jack Jordan. This is a legal thriller, which I didn't dislike, but I definitely didn't love. I had several issues with where this story went, which is allowed. But yeah, one that I'm happy that I got a chance to read. This cover really does, like, I love this cover, but not one I'm going to pick up again, especially when I know the answer, and I'm really happy that I was right. So there we have it. Those are all of the books that I have unhauled lately. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if there are any books here that you would like to get your hands on, as I said, please do drop me a message and we will get something sorted. I'm not going to talk for too much longer because that's taken long enough to get all those words out, and I still have another video I want to film tonight because clearly I have brain cells. But thank you so much for watching this one. I'm sure it won't be too long until we have another. So for now, please enjoy the other videos that aren't unhauled. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next one. Bye.